You sit in a room, and the air around you thickens, turns almost viscous, like the stillness before a storm. You look at the person across from you, and in his eyes there is no glimmer of understanding, no shadow of doubt. You have just spent 20 minutes, perhaps an hour of your priceless life, laying irrefutable facts on the table, building flawless logical chains, citing studies, and leaning on common sense. You spoke calmly, you spoke clearly, you believed that truth would carve its own path through the fog of his delusions. But he simply looks at you, pauses, and repeats the same absurd thought, only a little louder, a little more confident, as if your logic was merely faint background noise, unable to drown out his inner certainty. And in that moment you feel it. It is not just irritation. It is a cold, clammy feeling of powerlessness that starts somewhere in your stomach and rises to your throat, squeezing it with an invisible hand. You leave that conversation with the sense that you were not simply unheard, you were humiliated, you were broken. You replay the dialogue in your head over and over, conjuring the perfect, devastating arguments you should have made an hour ago. But the train has left, you lost, and the most terrifying question that begins to eat away at your mind from the inside is not, why is he so stupid? The most terrifying question is this: why did I, with all my intellect, with all my experience, allow this person to drain my energy and leave me with a feeling of my own worthlessness? Reflect on this paradox for a second. We live in a world obsessed with rationality. Since childhood, we are taught that knowledge is power, that arguments defeat ignorance, that truth will ultimately prevail. But this is the great lie society tells itself to keep from going mad from the chaos. The truth we try not to notice is that, in a collision with militant stupidity, intellect is not merely powerless. Intellect becomes your primary vulnerability. The smarter you are, the more you believe in the power of logic. The more you believe in the power of logic, the deeper you sink into the trap the fool sets for you. He does not play by the rules of reason because he does not acknowledge them. You'd try to play chess, calculating moves 10 steps ahead, while he simply flips the board, throws the pieces at you, and screams that he has won. And you are left standing in the middle of the room, clutching a useless queen, realizing that your education has become your curse. You think you are arguing with a person, but you are mistaken. You are not arguing with a person. You are arguing with a black hole that absorbs every light you try to throw into it. But let us look the truth in the eye, directly, without pity and without illusions. The problem is not that they are stupid. The problem is that you are weak. Yes, precisely you, your inability to retreat, your ego whispering that you must prove you are right, your hidden pride that refuses to let you simply shut your mouth and walk away. You remain in this toxic dance, not because you want to help them see the truth. You remain because you need their approval, or at least their acknowledgement of your superiority. You want them to say, yes, you are right, I was wrong. But that will not happen. Never. And while you wait for this non-existent validation, you give them the most precious currency you possess: your time, your attention, and your peace of mind. You allow a person whose opinion would not be worth a broken penny in an objective universe to dictate your emotional state for the rest of the day. You hand him the keys to your fortress. You let chaos into your inner temple, and then wonder why it is so hard to find silence there afterward. This is unbearable. It is humiliating. And it happens to you not because you are not smart enough, and not because you are not eloquent enough. It happens because you do not understand the fundamental laws of human nature. You do not see the invisible threads that pull at your emotions, forcing you to dance to someone else's tune. You do not realize that stupidity is not simply the absence of knowledge. It is not merely a miscalculation. Stupidity is an active, destructive force with its own gravity, its own logic, and its own terrifying imperviousness to reality. It mutates, it adapts, it devours facts, and turns them into fuel for even greater madness. And while you try to cure this disease with logic, you are only pouring oil on the fire. You are playing a game where the rules were written not so that you could win. The rules were written so that you would spend your energy while the fool feeds on it. But what if I told you that this cycle can be broken? What if I told you that there is a way to make your mind an impregnable fortress? Imagine for a second that you enter any conversation, knowing that nothing will touch you. Imagine that you look at a person spewing absurdity and feel not a drop of irritation, not a shadow of doubt, not a desire to prove anything. Imagine that you possess secret knowledge that turns their loudest attack into empty sound, into meaningless noise that simply bounces off your walls and dissipates into the air. This is not fantasy. This is not another motivational platitude about just being above it or breathing deeper. This is a harsh, pragmatic, centuries-honed, and modern verified strategy of psychological defense. It is a set of mental shields forged in the furnace of history's greatest minds and confirmed by the most advanced research into the human brain. By the end of this conversation, you will never be the same again. You will stop being a victim of someone else's ignorance. You will understand why your arguments never worked, and you will stop using them. You will learn to recognize the hidden mechanics of stupidity and how to use its blindness as your primary weapon. I will show you how the great Stoics, whether in chains or on a throne, dealt with the madness of the crowd. I will reveal to you the mathematical cruelty of laws that prove that arguing with a fool is always a loss. And I will teach you how to elegantly and ruthlessly exit this game, taking your power with you. You will learn why your own brain works against you and how to seize control of the ancient instincts that drive you to scream. But I warn you now, what you are about to hear will be uncomfortable. It will not be a smooth and pleasant story that pats you on the head and tells you that you are right and everyone else is a fool. No. To gain this impenetrability, you will have to kill a part of your own ego. You will have to look in the mirror and admit that you too are vulnerable, that you too sometimes become part of this insane mechanism. You will have to accept the dark side of human nature, the side most people hide behind masks of politeness and education. We will walk through the pain of your past defeat, through the labyrinths of others and your own stupidity, to finally emerge into absolute, unshakable calm. If you are ready to stop being a puppet of others' emotions, if you are ready to build an empire of silence within yourself that no fool, no brute, no ignoramus can destroy, then stay with me until the very end. Do not switch away, do not get distracted, because every next layer of this knowledge will add a new shield to your psyche. What we begin now will change not just how you argue, it will change how you exist in this world. Are you ready to take back your power? Then listen carefully, because we are beginning the descent into the very depths of human nature. And the first step will be the hardest. This path is not for the weak. It will demand ruthless honesty from you, a willingness to abandon familiar illusions, and the courage to look at your own reflection without embellishment. You must understand that true strength lies not in the ability to crush an opponent, but in the absolute refusal to engage him in battle. We will dissect every aspect of this confrontation, from hidden biological triggers to ancient philosophical practices that will help you regain control of your mind. Prepare for your beliefs to be questioned and your old methods of defense to prove useless. We will build a new architecture of your thinking, stone by stone, creating a foundation that no storm can shatter. This will be a transformation that touches the deepest layers of your personality. And when this process is complete, you will gain what most people lose in their very first serious conflict. You will gain absolute, unshakable inner freedom, which will become your chief weapon and your most reliable refuge in this chaotic world, where every day brings new trials for our mind, and only true wisdom can protect us from destruction, granting peace and clarity of thought, even in the darkest and most anxious times of our short and unpredictable life on this planet, which will change your fate forever. Right now, without doubt. Imagine the cold, not the cold of winter, but that penetrating, clammy cold that seeps through the thin walls of a prison cell and settles right into your bones. We are in 1943, Berlin, Tegel Prison. In this damp, stone-smelling box sits a man. His name is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He is not a soldier. He is not a spy. He is a pastor, a theologian, a man whose mind was accustomed to soaring through philosophy. But now, his world is confined to 4 gray walls, a narrow barred window, and the relentless ticking of a clock counting down to an inevitable end. Every night he hears the heavy footsteps of guards in the corridor. Every night he understands that the next step could be his last. The guillotine's execution hangs over him. It would seem that under such conditions, the mind should break. A man should beg for mercy, fall into despair, curse those who threw him into this abyss. But Bonhoeffer does none of this. Instead of looking at his own chains, he looks at those who put those chains on him. He observes. He analyzes. He pierces through the thick layer of concrete with his gaze, trying to understand one terrible, unforgivable secret of human nature. A secret that will ultimately become his greatest revelation. He looks at his jailers. He looks at the educated German officers, at the doctors, at the engineers, at the professors, who, with perfect manners, with impeccable politeness, send thousands of people to their deaths. They quote Goethe. They listen to Bach. They speak of high culture and the greatness of the nation. And at the same time, they commit unimaginable evil. Bonhoeffer searches their eyes for a drop of doubt, a shadow of sadism, a sign of pure, unbridled malice. Because evil we know how to handle. Evil can be exposed. Evil can be resisted. Evil has a face, and that face can be hated. But he finds not a drop of sadism in their eyes. Their eyes are empty. Their gazes are unfocused. They do not commit evil consciously. They are simply following orders. They are simply drifting with the current. And it is in this moment, in this freezing cell, that Dietrich Bonhoeffer formulates a thought that should send a shiver down the spine of those of us sitting in warm rooms. He writes in his letters that stupidity is not simply an intellectual deficiency. Stupidity is a far more dangerous enemy than malice itself. Malice can be defeated by force. Malice can be exposed by making its bearer feel shame. But against stupidity, we are utterly defenseless. Consider this paradoxical truth. We are accustomed to thinking that stupidity is simply a lack of intelligence. That if a person has read little or studied poorly, he is stupid. But Bonhoeffer, observing an educated nation marching into hell, understood something terrifying. Stupidity has nothing to do with the level of intellect. A brilliant physicist can be an absolute fool in matters of morality. A simple, illiterate peasant can possess crystal-clear wisdom. Stupidity is not a defect of the brain. Stupidity is a defect of the soul. It is a voluntary, conscious renunciation of independent thinking. A person gripped by stupidity ceases to be a personality. He turns into an instrument, a puppet, a cog in a vast, soulless machine. He completely hands over control of his life and his thoughts to external forces, a leader, the crowd, an ideology. And the most horrifying thing is that this person is no longer capable of perceiving facts that contradict his new beliefs. Facts simply bounce off him like peas off a wall. And if facts become utterly irrefutable, the fool simply declares them an exception to the rule, a coincidence, a deception. He becomes invulnerable, he becomes dangerous. And here lies the primary threat. A stupid person, according to Bonhoeffer, is capable of any evil, and yet does not realize it. He feels no guilt because his conscience is switched off. He feels no responsibility because he is merely following the majority. At any moment, he is ready to transform from a quiet Philistine into a bloodthirsty monster, as soon as someone points him to an enemy. And at the same time, he will just as easily turn into a victim if asked. It is impossible to negotiate with him. It is impossible to argue with him. Logic does not work on him. Emotions do not work on him. He is in a state of hypnotic trance from which it is impossible to rouse him. That is precisely why Bonhoeffer draws his main conclusion. Stupidity is more dangerous than malice, because the villain at least understands what he is doing. The villain has a motive. The villain has a goal. He can be predicted, but the fool is unpredictable. The fool attacks without reason. The fool destroys without a plan. The fool is a blind, chaotic force of destruction that knows no stops. And when you encounter such a person, you are encountering not an opponent. You are encountering a black hole that swallows every light of reason. Bonhoeffer paid the highest price for this understanding. In April 1945, just weeks before the end of the war, he was transferred to Flossenburg concentration camp and executed. He entered eternity, leaving us this great, terrifying warning. But let us transfer this view from the damp prison cell of 43 straight into your life, straight into your office, straight into your living room, straight into that very moment when you stand across from a person who refuses to hear you, who repeats his absurd arguments, who feeds on your irritation. We are not in Nazi Germany. We are not awaiting execution, but the mechanism remains exactly the same. That person yelling at you, who rejects facts, who behaves like a blind battering ram. He is not a villain. He is in that very state of voluntary surrender of his mind. He gave away his freedom of thought, and now he demands that you submit to his chaos. How will you fight this? How will you preserve your sanity, your soul, your inner peace when this quiet yet destructive, insane storm rages around you? The answer to this question demands from us not just intellect. It demands from us an ancient, forgotten discipline. A discipline that transforms a person into an indestructible rock. You must understand that before you is not simply a foolish interlocutor. Before you is a person who voluntarily renounced his reason, his freedom, his personality. He became a function. He became an echo of someone else's thoughts, a blind executor of someone else's will. And when he attacks you, he is not attacking you personally. He attacks you because you represent a threat to his illusory world. You are a bearer of facts, and facts destroy his fragile construct. Therefore, his reaction to you will always be aggressive, always irrational. He will scream. He will distort your words. He will clutch at any straw just to avoid admitting he is wrong. Because admitting he is wrong means admitting that he was mistaken, that he was blind, that he gave his life to a false idea. And that is unbearable. It would destroy his personality to its core. So he will defend his stupidity to his last breath. He will go to the end with you, even if that end leads to his ruin. This is his great tragedy. He cannot stop. He cannot look back. He is locked in his own prison, more terrible than the one in which Bonhoeffer sat. For Bonhoeffer's prison was physical. His body was in chains, but his mind remained free. He could think. He could analyze. He could write his great letters. But the fool's prison is a mental prison. His mind is shackled by his own delusions. He cannot step beyond his narrow beliefs. He cannot see the world as it truly is. He sees only the reality imposed upon him. And this reality is full of enemies, full of threats, full of conspiracies. He lives in constant fear and constant tension. And this fear he projects onto you. When he screams at you, when he tries to humiliate you, he is in fact screaming from his own fear. He is afraid that you will destroy his illusions. He is afraid that you will show him a truth he is unable to accept. Therefore, the next time you encounter such a person, remember Bonhoeffer. Remember his freezing cell. Remember his piercing gaze that saw right through people. Understand that before you is not an enemy to be defeated. Before you is a victim to be pitied, but with whom you cannot argue. You cannot save him. You cannot open his eyes. You can only protect yourself. You can build an impenetrable wall of calm around yourself. You can become that stone against which his chaos will shatter. And this is not weakness. This is the highest form of strength. This is a Stoic choice. A choice in favor of your mind, in favor of your soul, in favor of your inner freedom. Because the only thing that cannot be taken from you is your ability to choose how to respond to this insane world. And this choice you must make every day, every hour, every minute. To understand why your arguments never worked, you must accept the cruel mathematical reality of our world. The Italian programmer Alberto Brandolini formulated a law that forever changes the view of any argument. It states that the amount of energy needed to refute nonsense is an order of magnitude greater than the energy spent to produce it. Consider this unjust asymmetry. It takes a stupid person exactly 3 seconds to claim that the earth is flat and everyone is lying. He needs no proof, he needs no logic. It is enough for him simply to toss this phrase into the air. But for you to dismantle this nonsense, you will need half an hour. You will have to search for references, construct chains of reasoning, explain the basic principles of physics, exercise monstrous patience. And do you know what will happen at the end of this exhausting path? Your interlocutor will simply shrug and say that this is merely your subjective opinion. 30 minutes of your life, your nervous system, your time will simply go into the trash bin. It is always infinitely easier to destroy than to build. To utter stupidity is easier than to dismantle it. And smart people who have realized this structural feature of reality simply stop playing a game where the rules are written against them from the start. They understand that financing someone else's chaos with their own energy is the highest form of madness, leading only to complete exhaustion. But why does the stupid person in this argument appear so impenetrably self-confident? The answer lies in the blindness of one's own ignorance. Psychologists Dunning and Kruger proved that people with low competence systematically overestimate their abilities, because realizing one's own incompetence requires precisely the knowledge they lack. Incompetence robs a person of the ability to understand that he is incompetent. Recall the bank robber who smeared lemon juice on his face to become invisible to cameras. He was absolutely sincere in his confidence. And while you try to explain the chemistry of citric acid to him, he looks at you as if you are insane. The situation is exacerbated by the fact that competent people, conversely, tend to doubt themselves, seeing the full complexity and multifaceted nature of the world. As a result, we get a diabolical combination. The ignoramus screams with absolute, devastating certainty, while the expert speaks cautiously, constantly qualifying his statements. To an outside observer, the confident ignoramus always looks more persuasive. The Italian economist Cipolla called such people the most dangerous category, because the fool attacks without reason, without plan, and without gain, causing harm to everyone around him, including himself. You cannot defeat someone who is physically incapable of realizing he is wrong, because his mind is securely locked in the dungeon of his own delusion. It is precisely at this moment, when you collide with this impenetrable wall of confidence, that your own brain betrays you. Deep in the temporal lobes lies the amygdala, an ancient alarm system inherited from our distant ancestors. Its task is to react instantly to a threat, but the amygdala does not distinguish a tiger in the bushes from a boar in a queue. To it, an insult, a brazen lie, or a glaring injustice is the same physical threat. An amygdala hijack occurs. The emotional brain seizes control from the rational. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and self-control, temporarily shuts down. Stress hormones flood the blood, the heart pounds, and you say things you will later regret. The most precise and lethal arguments come to mind only an hour later, on the way home. The French call this staircase wit. The stupid person, without intending to, constantly presses the button of your amygdala. His absurd confidence and refusal to hear facts serve as perfect triggers. As long as you react automatically, he remotely controls your nervous system. You think you are arguing, but in reality, you are simply dancing to the tune of his chaos, having completely lost control over yourself and your emotions, handing him power over your inner world. To break free from this biological trap, you must change tactics and stop making assertions. Socrates never told his interlocutor that he was wrong. He did not lecture or present facts. He did something far more insidious. He asked questions. The genius of this method lies in the fact that you shift the heavy work of substantiating a position onto the interlocutor himself. Remember Brandolini's law? Refuting is expensive, but asking questions is cheap. When a person makes yet another absurd claim, simply ask him calmly where he learned that, and what would happen if his logic were applied to a different case. You are not attacking him. You are merely showing sincere curiosity. But by doing so, you force his brain to work, the very brain he voluntarily gave up. In the best case, he will contemplate his own words for the first time in his life. In the worst case, he will begin to get tangled, contradict himself, and eventually fall silent, unable to bear the weight of his own logic. And you, all the while, have not made a single debatable statement. You were simply interested. This method requires colossal self-control, but it transforms you from a victim into a silent investigator, forcing the fool to dig through his own filth until he suffocates in his own contradictions. But sometimes even questions do not work, and then strategic silence and the gray rock technique come into play. Smart people understand that not every statement requires a reaction. Silence is not weakness and not a sign of agreement. It is a strict filter that protects your energy. Before getting entangled in a conflict, ask yourself 3 simple questions. Will my answer change this person's opinion? Is this person important in my life? Will this argument have any significance a year from now? If the answer to all 3 questions is no, you have just saved yourself an hour of life and a whole batch of nerve cells. If leaving is impossible because you are dealing with a colleague or a relative, become as boring as a gray rock by the roadside. Answer neutrally, briefly, with absolutely no emotion. A conflictual person feeds on your reaction, your indignation, your attempts to prove you are right. By denying him this emotional fuel, you starve him. After a while, he will tire and go looking for a more responsive victim. And sometimes, the quickest way to end a senseless dispute is paradoxical agreement. Tell him that perhaps he is right. You did not lie. You simply exited the game with minimal losses, preserving your time and your peace of mind, which is worth more than any rightness. For all these techniques to work flawlessly, you must change the very paradigm of your expectations from the world. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his era, surrounded by flatterers and traitors, began every morning with a simple yet ingenious practice. He told himself that today he would definitely meet nosy, ungrateful, insolent, and stupid people. The Stoics called this the premeditation of adversity. He did not hope that fools would take the day off. He knew they were part of this world, like rain or wind. By preparing for their appearance in advance, he robbed them of the ability to catch him off guard. Your amygdala reacts much more calmly to the expected than to the sudden. When you mentally rehearse the scenario of meeting a fool in the morning, you make the decision in advance not to get angry. In the evening, in the heat of conflict, all that remains is to execute that morning decision. Marcus Aurelius also explained the stupidity of others as ignorance, not ill will. A person is that way because he does not understand the truth, not because he wants to harm you personally. Separate the person from his behavior. His words are merely vibrations of air. They become harmful only through your interpretation. Remove the judgment, and the very sensation of harm vanishes, leaving only cold, detached observation of another's madness. And now we arrive at the most uncomfortable, the most painful truth, without which everything said would be hypocrisy. Recall the Dunning-Kruger effect. An incompetent person does not realize his own incompetence. Now, ask yourself this terrifying question. How do you know that the fool in this argument is him and not you? Every participant in any conflict is absolutely certain that the fool is the one across from them. Both cannot be right simultaneously, but both can be mistaken. Cipolle's first law states that we always underestimate the number of stupid people around us. But this law has a mirror corollary, which it is customary to keep silent about. In someone else's statistics of fools, you and I are included. Each of us has topics where we are that very confident ignoramus with lemon juice on our face. We simply cannot see it by definition. And here is the main test that distinguishes a smart person from a fool more reliably than any intelligence test. A stupid person, hearing all this, will think of his son-in-law or his colleague. A smart person will think about in which matters he himself is that very fool. The only defense against this is the habit of ruthlessly doubting yourself, checking your own convictions, and every evening, as Seneca did, conducting a brief review of the day, analyzing your own mistakes, not the errors of others, erasing the line between the observer and the object of observation. The moment has come when we must stop and look each other straight in the eye. You have listened to me. You have absorbed these laws. You have dissected the mechanisms of human stupidity, down to the smallest detail. But now I must ask you the cruelest, the most uncomfortable question of all that have sounded in this room. Why, knowing all this, do you still allow them to defeat you? Why, realizing the full absurdity of their positions, do you continue to spend your precious hours trying to persuade those who are physically incapable of hearing you? The answer is simple, and it cuts more painfully than any knife. You allow them to defeat you because deep down you still believe that their stupidity is an external force that attacks you like a storm against a weak ship. You think that they have power over your peace, that their shouts can shatter your walls, that their ignorance can stain your wisdom. But this is a lie. It is a great, monstrous lie that your egoism whispers to you every night to justify your weakness. You are not a victim. You were never a victim. You are an accomplice in your own defeat. You willingly hand them the keys to your fortress, and then wonder why they walk through your rooms and dirty your floors. It is time to stop this pitiful game. It is time to take off the mask of the sufferer and look at reality as it truly is. Imagine an endless, raging ocean. The water is dark, cold, full of hidden currents and sharp reefs. You stand on the shore, and the waves hit you in the face, knocking you off your feet. You scream at the ocean. You demand that it calm down. You present it with arguments. You explain why it should not be so cruel. You spend all your energy trying to stop the tide with your bare hands, and you drown. You drown not because the ocean is too strong. You drown because you are trying to defeat the elements instead of building your own sturdy wooden ship. The stupid people around, you're this very ocean. They will not change. They will not calm down. They will not become smarter at your command. Their nature is what it is, and attempts to change them are the highest form of madness. But as soon as you stop fighting the water and start building your ship, everything changes. You no longer drown. You glide along the surface. You use their energy, their chaos, their blindness to move forward. This is that very psychological shift we have been waiting for. This is the transition from a state of eternal defense to a state of absolute, unshakable sovereignty. You no longer argue with the waves. You simply sail. leaving their noise far behind you today. True strength, the very kind the Stoics wrote about and the greatest minds in history sought, lies not in the ability to crush an enemy. True strength lies in the absolute, crystal-clear refusal to engage him in combat. When you understand this, a quiet but devastating explosion occurs inside you. The ego that so craved the last word, that was so afraid of appearing wrong, dies. And in its place, something completely new is born, something cold, calm, and infinitely powerful. You become the emperor of your own mind. You sit on a throne that no one can ever take from you. From this throne you look at fools not with irritation, not with contempt, but with a slight, detached curiosity. You see right through them. You see their fears, their complexes, their blindness, and you understand that their words have nothing to do with you. Their stupidity is their prison, not your sentence. You no longer allow their chaos to penetrate your inner temple. You erect walls of pure, impenetrable calm around your mind, and when they beat against these walls, they shatter into dust, without even realizing they have lost. This shift demands ruthless honesty from you. You must kill your need for the approval of others. You must stop seeking justice where there is none. Justice is an illusion invented by the weak to console themselves. Reality is unjust. People are stupid. The world is chaotic. And as soon as you accept this dark, uncomfortable truth, you become free. You no longer expect the world to behave logically. You know it will not, and therefore you are ready for anything. Your attention, your energy, your time, this is your only real capital, and you will never again invest it in obviously losing ventures. You do not waste a single drop of your life force on those who are incapable of appreciating it. You gather your scattered energy into one powerful, directed beam, and aim it to create, to build your life, your legacy, your inner world. The fools remain on the roadside, continuing to shout into the void. And you move forward, and with every step you become heavier, denser, more real. Their noise can no longer blow you off your path, because you have turned into stone. You must realize that your reaction is your last and only inviolable right. No one can force you to be angry. No one can make you doubt yourself. No one can steal your peace unless you yourself open the door to them. This thought must become your main weapon and your main shield today. When you walk down the street, when you sit at the negotiating table, when you speak with the people closest to you, remember this: you are the master of your fortress. You alone decide whom to let in and whom to leave outside the walls. And if someone tries to burst inside with the dirty feet of their stupidity, you do not start arguing with them about cleanliness. You simply close the door in silence, and you turn the lock, and you return to your affairs. In this lies the highest elegance of conduct. In this lies the true aristocracy of the spirit. Do not stoop to explanations. Do not waste saliva on proofs. Simply be. Simply exist in your indestructible calm, allowing the world to revolve around you, but without touching your essence. And so we come to the finale of this path. To that very moment when the darkness dissipates, and a clear, cold light of truth opens before you. You are no longer the person who began this conversation. You have shed the skins of illusions. You have stopped being a puppet of others' emotions. You have taken your power back, but remember that this power demands constant discipline. Stoicism is not a one-time act. It is a daily, hourly choice. Every morning you will wake up and choose who you want to be today. A pitiful debater trying to prove his rightness to ignoramuses, or a quiet, indestructible observer who guards his inner fire. The choice is always yours. And now that you know this secret, now that you see the invisible threads pulling the emotions of the crowd, you have no more excuses. You can no longer pretend to be blind. You are obligated to carry this light. You are obligated to guard this silence. And when the world around you goes mad, when the voices of fools sound louder than ever, you will stand motionless. You will smile your quiet, enigmatic smile, because you know a secret that is inaccessible to them. You know that true victory does not go to the one who shouts loudest. True victory goes to the one who has learned to simply be silent and observe the world. This path is not for the weak. It will demand ruthless honesty from you, a willingness to abandon familiar illusions, and the courage to look at your own reflection without embellishment. You must understand that true strength lies not in the ability to crush an opponent, but in the absolute refusal to engage him in battle. We will dissect every aspect of this confrontation, from hidden biological triggers to ancient philosophical practices that will help you regain control of your mind, prepare for your beliefs to be questioned, and your old methods of defense to prove completely useless in this new world. We will build a new architecture of your thinking, stone by stone, creating an impenetrable foundation that no storm can shatter. This will be a transformation that touches the deepest layers of your personality. And when this process is complete, you will gain what most people lose in their very first serious conflict. You will gain absolute, unshakable inner freedom, which will become your chief weapon and your most reliable refuge in this chaotic world, where every day brings new trials for our mind, and only true wisdom can protect us from destruction, granting peace and clarity of thought, even in the darkest and most anxious times of our short and unpredictable life on this planet, which will change your fate forever. Right now, forever. You must understand that your reaction is your last and only inviolable right. No one can force you to be angry. No one can make you doubt yourself. No one can steal your peace unless you yourself open the door to them. This thought must become your main weapon and your main shield. When you walk down the street, when you sit at the negotiating table, when you speak with the people closest to you, remember this. You are the master of your fortress. You alone decide whom to let in and whom to leave outside the walls. And if someone tries to burst inside with the dirty feet of their stupidity, you simply remain silent. You do not start arguing with them about cleanliness. You simply close the door in silence, and you turn the lock, and you return to your affairs. In this lies the highest elegance of conduct. In this lies the true aristocracy of the spirit. Do not stoop to explanations. Do not waste saliva on proofs. Simply be. Simply exist in your indestructible calm, allowing the world to revolve around you, but without touching your essence. And so we come to the finale of this path, to that very moment when the darkness dissipates and a clear, cold light of truth opens before you. You are no longer the person who began this conversation. You have shed all the old illusions forever. Silence. After all this noise, after all these shouts, after all this struggle, silence comes. It is not empty. It is not dead. It is full. Your own breath sounds within it, steady and deep. The beat of your heart can be heard within it, calm and confident. This silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of yourself. You stand on the summit of a mountain you built yourself from the stones of your mind, and you look down at the valley where the storm still rages. The people there still shout, still argue, still waste their lives trying to persuade those who do not want to hear. But you are no longer in that valley. You have risen higher, and now you see everything whole. You see how stupidity, how fear, how ego push people against each other, forcing them to fight for shadows, for illusions, for things that have no value. You see their pain, their loneliness, their despair disguised as aggression. And instead of anger, something completely new is born in your heart. Something akin to compassion, but colder, purer. Understanding. You understand that we all sometimes smear lemon juice on our faces. We all, at some point, in some area, lose touch with reality. We all become victims of our own prejudices, our own fears, our own pride. And it is precisely this knowledge that makes you truly free. It strips you of the right to contempt. You can no longer look down on someone who is mistaken, because you know that tomorrow it could be you. And this awareness becomes your main strength. It does not allow you to relax. It does not let you get drunk on your own rightness. It forces you every evening, like Marcus Aurelius, to sit down and ask yourself, where was I a fool today? Where did I let my ego prevail over reason? Where did I waste my energy in vain? This daily ritual of self-examination is your imperial guard, protecting your gates from the inner enemy, which is far more dangerous than any outer one. And so you stand here in your empire of silence, and you know one simple, absolute truth. True victory was never about making another person agree with you. True victory is preserving your inner world untouched, regardless of the chaos raging outside. It is the ability to look absurdity in the eye and not blink. It is the capacity to hear the loudest scream and remain in your calm. It is the art of being impenetrable not through armor, but through the total absence of any need for defense. Because you no longer perceive their words as an attack. You see them simply as vibrations of air, like the noise of wind in the leaves. They cannot harm you, because you alone decide what constitutes harm for you. You have stopped seeking justice in their eyes. You found it within yourself, and that is enough. Tomorrow morning, before leaving the house, do what the emperor did. Close your eyes and tell yourself, today I will meet nosy, ungrateful, insolent, and stupid people. They are this way because they do not know good from evil. They cannot harm me, for my inner response lies entirely within my power. Speak these words slowly, thoughtfully. Feel them settling into your body, creating an invisible shield around you. And when you encounter the first manifestation of stupidity that day, remember these words. Do not react, just observe. Let their words fly past you like clouds across the sky. Do not cling to them. Do not try to dismantle them. Simply know that they exist and continue on your path. In a week, you will notice that your day has become lighter. In a month, you will be surprised at how much calmer your heart has become. And in a year, you will no longer recognize the person who once spent hours of life on useless arguments. But I will leave you not with an instruction, but with a question. One single question that will echo in your head until you find an honest answer. Recall the last time you felt defeated in an argument. Recall that pain, that anger, that bitterness. Now ask yourself, was I truly defeated? Or did I myself allow that person to steal my peace? Was he my enemy, or was he simply a mirror that showed me my own weakness, my dependence on his opinion, my inability to maintain control over my mind? This question has no simple answer. It demands courage. It demands a readiness to look into the deepest, darkest part of yourself. But only by passing through this question can you truly enter your empire of silence and lock the gates behind you forever. Because freedom is not the state of the world around you. Freedom is the state of your mind. And you have just received the key to your own prison. Use it wisely. And remember, the loudest voices always belong to the emptiest people. Your strength is in your silence. Your power is in your choice. Your future is in your calm. Go forward. The world awaits not your explanations, but your example. And may your silence become the loudest message it has ever heard. You are no longer a participant in this game. You are its observer. You are its judge. You are its master. And your empire, built of pure, unshakable calm, will stand forever, as long as you remember that the only real battle takes place not outside, but within yourself. And you already won it. The moment you decided to stop fighting for things not worth your blood. Your task now is not to prove your rightness to the world, but to guard your inner light from its filth. Not to try to change others, but to become so whole and impenetrable that your mere presence serves as a living refutation of their chaos. This is the highest form of influence. Not through words, but through being. Not through argument, but through the silent majesty of your own existence. And when you are again asked to explain your position, your faith, your way of life. You will simply look into the eyes of your interlocutor and softly say, "Perhaps you are right." And in this perhaps will be contained all your strength, all your wisdom, all your unshakable certainty that you no longer need anyone's approval, except the approval of yourself in the silence of your own conscience, which has now become your only and eternal judge in this world full of sound and fury, yet devoid of meaning for those who have not learned to listen to themselves in the absolute silence of their own heart, which now beats in the rhythm of eternity, not to the beat of another's madness. You must understand that your reaction is your last and only inviolable right. No one can force you to be angry. No one can make you doubt yourself. No one can steal your peace unless you yourself open the door to them. This thought must become your main weapon and your main shield. When you walk down the street, when you sit at the negotiating table, when you speak with the people closest to you, remember this. You are the master of your fortress. You alone decide whom to let in and whom to leave outside the walls. And if someone tries to burst inside with the dirty feet of their stupidity, you do not start arguing with them about cleanliness. You simply close the door in silence, and you turn the lock, and you return to your affairs. In this lies the highest elegance of conduct. In this lies the true aristocracy of the spirit. Do not stoop to explanations. Do not waste saliva on proofs. Simply be. Simply exist in your indestructible calm, allowing the world to revolve around you, but without touching your essence. And so we come to the finale of this path. To that very moment when the darkness dissipates and a clear, cold light of truth opens before you. You are no longer the person who began this conversation. You have shed the skins of illusions. You have stopped being a puppet of others' emotions. You have taken your power back. But remember that this power demands constant discipline. Stoicism is not a one-time act. It is a daily, hourly choice. Every morning you will wake up and choose who you want to be today. A pitiful debater trying to prove his rightness to ignoramuses, or a quiet, indestructible observer who guards his inner fire. The choice is always yours. And now that you know this secret, now that you see the invisible threads pulling the emotions of the crowd, you have no more excuses. You can no longer pretend to be blind. You are obligated to carry this light. You are obligated to guard this silence. And when the world around you goes mad, when the voices of fools sound louder than ever, you will stand motionless. You will smile your quiet, enigmatic smile, because you know a secret that is inaccessible to them. You know that true victory does not go to the one who shouts loudest. True victory goes to the one who has learned to simply be silent and observe the world without allowing it to invade your sacred inner space, which is now your inviolable territory, your personal paradise built of pure, crystalline calm and absolute, unshakable inner freedom, which now belongs only to you and to no one else. A moment comes when all words end, when the last arguments dissipate into the air, like smoke from a snuffed candle, when the screen dims and you are left alone with your own reflection in the black glass. And in this absolute silence, the most important conversation of your life is born. A conversation not with a fool, not with a boor, not with an ignoramus who shouted at you yesterday. A conversation with yourself. Because everything you have heard over these 40 minutes, all these laws, all these techniques, all these ancient wisdoms, are worth nothing if you do not apply them to the only person who truly matters, to the one who looks at you from the mirror every morning, to the one whose thoughts determine your reality, to the one whose reactions shape your fate, to the one who hides behind a mask of confidence, yet trembles inside from the fear of his own incompetence, which he so carefully conceals from the surrounding world. You came here to learn how to defeat stupid people. But the truth I have hidden until the very end is that no such victory exists. Not because you are weak, but because the very concept of victory in this context is an illusion. Victory assumes there is an opponent. Victory assumes there is a battlefield. Victory assumes that the outcome of this clash will somehow change your life. But a stupid person is not your opponent. He is part of the landscape. He is like rain, like wind, like gravity. You do not defeat the rain. You take an umbrella. You do not argue with the wind. You build walls. You do not prove to gravity that it is wrong. You simply learn not to fall. And the moment you stop seeing the fool as an enemy and start seeing him as a natural phenomenon, your entire life changes radically and irreversibly forever. Imagine you are sitting on a train. A man sits down across from you and begins speaking loudly on the phone, telling the entire carriage the details of his personal life. You grow irritated. You think about how ignorant he is, how uncultured, how selfish. You spend 20 minutes of your journey in inner indignation. But the train reaches the station, the man gets off, and you are left with a ruined mood, tension in your shoulders, a headache. He has already forgotten you. He is already living his life. Yet you still carry within you the poison he did not even know he passed to you. This is exactly what happens every time you allow a fool to penetrate your inner space. He does not know he is harming you. He does not plan it. He simply exists in his chaos. Like that man on the train who does not even suspect that someone nearby is suffering. And here lies the deepest, most transformational shift that can occur in human consciousness. When you stop blaming the outer world for your inner state, you take back all its power over you. You become absolutely, totally, terrifyingly free. This freedom is not given easily. It demands daily, hourly, minutely discipline. It demands that every time you feel irritation boiling up inside you, you stop and ask yourself, to whom am I giving my power right now? Whom am I allowing to control my emotions? Whom am I permitting to determine my mood for the rest of the day? And when you honestly answer these questions, you see the absurdity of the situation. You see that you are voluntarily, with your own hands, handing the remote control of your life to a person whose opinion is not worth a broken penny on the scale of the universe. The Stoics knew this secret 2,000 years ago. Epictetus, a slave whose body was broken by a cruel master, spoke of how the only thing that truly belongs to a person is his judgment about what happens. Not the events themselves, not the words of others, not the deeds of others, but only your attitude toward them. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor surrounded by traitors and flatterers, wrote down in his diary every evening not the sins of others, but his own mistakes. Seneca, the richest man in Rome, called anger a brief madness, and taught that the best revenge is not to punish the offender, but to refuse to become like him. These people did not live in an ideal world. They lived in a world full of violence, injustice, and stupidity. Yet they found a way to preserve their inner peace in the midst of that hell. And if they could do it, in chains or under the executioner's sword, then you and I are certainly capable of handling an ignorant relative at the holiday table. But I want to leave you not with consolation, but with a challenge. A real, harsh, uncompromising challenge that will haunt you long after this screen goes dark. Tomorrow morning you will wake up. You will pick up your phone. You will open the news feed, and the first thing you see will be another manifestation of collective stupidity, another absurd headline, another shouting comment, another piece of proof that the world is not getting smarter. And in that very moment, in that first second of a new day, you will make a choice. Either you will let that chaos penetrate your mind and poison your morning, or you will remember everything you heard today and take a deep, slow breath out. You will tell yourself, this is not in my power. My reaction is in my power. And you will walk past, preserving your peace and your clarity for what truly matters. And when, in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, you look back, You will not remember a single one of those arguments that seemed so important in that moment. You will not remember a single one of those fools who drove you out of your mind. You will not remember a single one of those shouts that made your heart beat faster. But you will remember the moments of silence. You will remember the moments when you chose not to react. You will remember the moments when you preserved your inner fire, despite all the world's attempts to extinguish it. And you will understand that it was precisely these moments, and not the loud victories or the devastating arguments, that defined your life. It was these quiet, unnoticed choices that made you who you are. It was this empire of silence that you built within yourself that became your true legacy and your only genuine victory. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, feel the air fill your lungs, feel your heart slow its rhythm, feel the tension leave your shoulders. And in this silence, in this absolute crystalline silence, ask yourself the last question. Not aloud, not in the comments, not in front of an audience, but in the deepest, most honest corner of your soul. When all the noise of the world falls silent, when all the voices of fools and sages merge into one indistinguishable echo, when you are left absolutely alone, face to face with eternity, who are you really? The one who shouts, trying to prove his rightness, or the one who is silent, knowing that truth needs no defense? The answer to this question will determine the rest of your life. And this answer belongs only to you, to no one else. Only to you and to that silence that now surrounds you, like a faithful guardian protecting the most precious treasure in the universe. Your mind, your soul, your unshakable inner freedom, which no one can ever take from you, unless you yourself decide to hand it over voluntarily into the hands of those who do not deserve even a second of your precious time.